Hey guys, this is God of Politics. Welcome back to a brand new video. But before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Twitter, that is linked down in the description and also on my channel page here. And join the Discord, that is also linked down in the description. But today's video, I'm going to be talking about why I think that the state of Arizona could go blue and very well may go blue in the 2020 election. Now, Arizona is a state that, if we look at the 2016 results here, went to Donald Trump by 3.5 percentage points. If we look at the election results from 2016 at the presidential level, we can see here that Donald Trump won by 3.5 percentage points. He won 48.1 to 44.6. In 2012, Mitt Romney won 54.2 to 44.1. So we do see that Hillary Clinton didn't have much of an improvement. She only had a half a percent improvement compared to Barack Obama. But Donald Trump did lose a lot of votes. He lost 6% of the vote. And it's not just at that level. If we compare it to 2018, and I know, you can't compare everything to a blue wave, but there was very high turnout in this state, and it shows a number of noticeable trends, and that's that the suburban areas especially Maricopa County, are trending toward the Democratic column. In the U.S. Senate race in Kyrsten Sinema versus Martha McSally in 2018, Kyrsten Sinema won the race by 2.4 percentage points, with also a Green Party candidate running who got a lot of the left-wing vote. So you could argue that really she would have won by even more had she not been running here. And one of the most important things to look at is the fact that Maricopa County here, you see this county that is highlighted here, went to Kyrsten Sinema, and she won it by 4.2 percentage points as well. If you compare that to 2016, in 2016, Donald Trump won Maricopa County by 2.9 percentage points. In 2012, Mitt Romney won it by just under 12 percentage points. So while Obama got 43.2% here, Hillary Clinton got 44.8% here, there's more of an improvement in the suburban area. The only areas that really trended towards the red column are the rural areas, which is what you're seeing across the country. If we look in, for example, La Paz County here, we can see Donald Trump won 67 to 26. Mitt Romney only won 65 to 32. If we look at the Navajo County up here, Donald Trump won at 51 to 40. Mitt Romney won at 53 to 45. So what you are seeing is in some of these rural counties, Donald Trump is actually improving. That's what you're seeing across the country, is that Donald Trump is doing very well with rural voters, and Democrats are doing very well with urban voters, as per usual, as it's been. But that's changing, actually. Democrats used to do well with rural voters because it was the whole idea that founded the left. The creation of labor unions and things like that were a response to the Industrial Revolution. That was the old left, how the left was created, with a lot of these working class voters that are now going to the Republican Party. And now suburban voters are actually the people that are coming to the Democratic Party, and it's a monumental shift that you're seeing across the country. There's this interesting New York Times article here saying, "Are the suburbs turning more Democratic?" And this talks about how across the country you're seeing the suburbs are becoming more Democratic. They used to be reliably Republican areas. You had the very Democratic cities, you had the very Republican suburbs, and then you had the rural areas that are a bit more mixed. Now what you're seeing is the urban areas are still very Democratic. The rural areas are becoming very Republican, especially what you're seeing in the Rust Belt. That's how Donald Trump won in the Rust Belt. He flipped a lot of those legacy Dems, for example, in northern Minnesota or in the rural areas of Michigan and Wisconsin. Those are the people who he flipped in the rural areas, the white working class voters that Donald Trump did exceptionally well in, and Republicans are doing exceptionally well in overall. They're improving at every level of government, state level, national level, the congressional districts, the Senate election, and most importantly, the presidential election. And so that's what you're seeing across the board. If we look at the breakdown by which area you're in, we look at the urban area, Hillary Clinton easily won it, by almost 75% of the vote here. But the inner suburbs, Hillary Clinton won the inner suburbs here ahead of Donald Trump. We go to the outer suburbs here, we can see Donald Trump does have a slight lead, but if you look at the overall suburbs, it's basically neck and neck. It's just these rural areas that are heavily giving votes to Trump, urban areas that are heavily giving votes to Clinton. And so, you could argue that both Democrats are maxed out in rural areas and Republicans are maxed out in rural areas. And it's all a battle over the suburban areas. And right now, the suburban areas are trending towards the Democratic column. And that's to do with a number of factors. It's to do with white college graduates who are becoming more Democratic overall. And it's also due to more diversity, more minorities in these areas. We can see, again, it says here, it's a realignment about education, that there are more college-educated voters. If we look at the map here, we can see that the urban areas have stayed pretty much as Democratic as they always were, if not more Democratic compared to 1996 with Bill Clinton. If we look at the inner suburbs here, this is the most noticeable change. The inner suburbs have become heavily Democratic compared to what they used to be. The outer suburbs have pretty much stayed the same, if anything, trended more Republican. And the rural areas, another noticeable trend here is they've become heavily Republican. And so educated people, that's to do with college-educated voters, especially white college-educated voters. And, that's having an impact on the state as a whole. But it's not just that. It is the influence of minority voters and more diversity that is due with, again, it says here, nearly 60% of all black people now live in suburbs. African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians together make up nearly 1/3 of the suburban population, and that number is increasing too. Democrats are having more of an influence on the suburbs because they're maxed out in the rural areas. They continue to have influence over those rural areas, whether they're gaining population, stagnated population, some of them even losing population, like in the Rust Belt. And now they're moving into the suburban areas. They're doing better overall, and that's why Democrats are doing, another reason why Democrats are doing especially well in the suburban areas. But going back to the map of Arizona here, if we're comparing that and putting that logic onto Arizona, we think, well, Democrats, they'll probably win Maricopa County when it's all said and done for this election. Donald Trump only won it by under 3 percentage points here, and chances are that the state, if it goes to Donald Trump, will only be by less than 1 percentage point, along with Mark Kelly, who's going against a pretty unpopular incumbent in Martha McSally here, and it's just the signs of a trending state. And again, it is a sign that you're seeing overall, but it's going to be most prevalent and most important this election in the state of Arizona, because that's the area where these suburbs are trending very Democratic, and it's most noticeable, and it's at the tipping point right now. And you're seeing this in the Rust Belt too, but it's kind of counteracted more by the fact that the rural areas are trending heavily Republican there. And the final thing that we're going to look at here, actually second to last thing we're going to look at here, is the polls. Now, I don't like to look at the polls too much because they can be an unreliable indicator, but if we compare it to 2016 here, we can see that the RCP average had Donald Trump at 4 points ahead. He was up 4 points in the polls, and he ended up winning by 3.5% in the actual results. So you could call those polls spot on, to be honest. The last 3 polls all pretty much got it, and there were no polls done in the last week, so they probably would have been even more Republican if they were 4 points Republican in the last week. Donald Trump probably would have gained as well. And so it's a sign that you see across the Southwest that Democrats are underperforming in the polls in the Southwest. They underperformed in Texas, they underperformed in Nevada, they underperformed in Arizona. And if you're going to use that same logic, Joe Biden would pretty easily win the state of Arizona. Now, you see Joe Biden here is up 4.5 percentage points in the state of Arizona. That is a monumental shift in terms of the realignment of the suburban population and the realignment of the state as a whole that is becoming really, really Democratic, to be honest. And Mark Kelly, he's up by 6 or 7 points in these polls. The most recent poll had Biden up by 9 points. I don't think he's going to win by 9 points. I think that the NBC News Mars poll looks pretty accurate to me. I mean, it's a large sample size, a small margin of error, and Biden's only up by a little bit. If Joe Biden does win, it'll be by a small margin. I think at this point he'd probably win it by a lean margin, but that number is expanding. He's probably going to win by more than that at this point, and that certainly could tighten. It probably will tighten. That's a very likely scenario. But as of now, Arizona is a state that he used to go blue, and it's a state that Republicans should worry about. If we just quickly put this onto the map here and we just fill in all of these Republican states, we're just going to fill in all these Republican states here, we can see that it's going to be bad for Republicans if they lose their hold on the Sun Belt here. Because Democrats are doing very well in the rural areas. They're going to continue to win these areas that have trended towards the blue column, states like Virginia, states like Colorado, New Mexico. Those states have trended towards the blue column in recent years. And so unless Republicans can do something about that, they're going to end up losing in the long run. I'll make another video about this in the future, but this is kind of just specifically talking about the state of Arizona. But if you're kind of generous to Republicans here, you give them Wisconsin, but you give Democrats Michigan and Pennsylvania. You give Republicans North Carolina, and you give them Georgia. Right, they're already 279 here. Democrats win Arizona, but then they can win Wisconsin, and they're at 266. They can win, they can win Florida. They can win North Carolina. They can win Georgia. There's so many. Actually, you need to flip Illinois. But if you give Florida back to them, and you give the state of Wisconsin back to them, Democrats still win in that scenario. They can win with the Sun Belt. And if you're looking at the electoral future, sure, you can give Pennsylvania and Michigan to them despite the fact that they are trending red suburbs. You can give them the benefit of the doubt in those states. But then you think Democrats will gain in Georgia, they'll gain in North Carolina, they'll even gain in Texas and Florida, and this is in the far future, but Republicans really are not going to have a future electorally if they cannot counteract the fact that the suburbs are trending heavily against them, because unless they can make improvements with the black vote, with the Latino vote, which there is signs that they could do in the urban areas, they're kind of maxed out in the rural areas, to be honest. So unless they can start turning this trend around and getting some more of those suburban areas back, they're going to end up losing states like Arizona in the long run, states like North Carolina, states like Texas here. And so this is what the electoral map really could look like in 20, 30 years, to be honest. And that's going to be bad news for Republicans. And, I don't want to doom too much on the Republicans' chances, but it could be really bad for the Republicans, to be honest, if they are unable to get these suburban areas back, because they have such high populations and they're the fastest growing areas in the country. And unless Republicans can do something to stop it, their chances are going to be gone. But this is specifically about Arizona and why I think that Arizona could go blue in the 2020 election. So thank you all for watching this video. Please like and subscribe as always. Follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, and I'll see you guys later.